Friends, this country has a rich tradition that is carried forward through the mediums of debates and discussions, and that is how we are known as the mother of democracy. The way our journalist colleagues worked like karma yogis in the interest of the nation during the COVID-19 pandemic, it wasn't an easy time to work. When most of us were locked inside the houses, they were on the field reporting and sending us the news. And last 2.5 years were very difficult for them to function. And they will be remembered forever. The positive contribution, the media helped India a lot in dealing with the biggest crisis of the last century. I would like to put on record an appreciation to the Mathrubhumi group that it was among the very few media houses which did not sack its employee even as it suffered losses during the pandemic. Thank you very much for that, for taking that decision. Friends, India has a glorious tradition of free speech and democratic practices dating back to centuries. As democracy has flourished in our great nation, so has the media. Free speech in India is a commitment of its robust institutions. So from Kerala to Kashmir, among the many threads that unite the diverse people of this great nation, possibly the strongest is their belief that India is their motherland, their Karam Bhumi, their Janam Bhumi, their Punya Bhumi, their Mathrubhumi, and the newspaper Keswa Mena founded is a tribute to this unshakable belief. Unfortunately, and I mean it literally, there are some who do not believe so. For them, India is not their motherland. They have a fatherland, which is a foreign country, from where they derived the foreign ideology. Then there are those who misquote the Constitution and have no knowledge of the Constituent Assembly debates to describe our nation as mere union of states. This shapes their narrow, spiteful politics, which in many ways is aligned to the core identity of India. These days, the word democracy is heard often in public discourse. A noble principle of governance has been reduced to a fashion statement by those who have constantly tried to weaken democracy and its institutions in our country. Violators are now pretending to be the victims. And we must remember that unlike Western countries, democracy is not an artificial implant on India. It is an integral and indestructible part of our civilizational history. The sabhas and samitis that existed in other parts of Bharatvarsha also existed in what is known as Kerala. Democracy existed then, it exists now, and it shall exist in the future too. But what is amazing, how the Bhakshaks is trying to project themselves as Rakshak of the democracy. I would like to remind the August gathering that we should not allow these authoritarian forces who are trying to rear their heads again. We have a beautiful system of democracy. Every 5 years we go for polls, people elect their elected governments. And we look back into the history. The world's first elected communist government came to power in Kerala in 1957. In the election held soon after state's formation in 1956. And that time it was the undivided Communist Party of India who had the full majority. But what happened next? Then ruling party took this as an affront, unable to tolerate the fact that the people of Kerala had not voted for them or voted them back to power. And government of that time invoked Article 356 of the newly minted Constitution of India to sack the left government. The Congress got away with impunity. It was the first gross misuse of the Constitution. Subsequently, they abused Article 356 to sack 93 state governments, striking blow after swear blow to the democracy in India, pulping political diversity and making political differences a punishable offense. The left may have forgotten, but India hasn't. The reason why I'm saying this is, this 100 years of journey of Mathrubhumi has seen many shades of our democracy, many attempts to dethrone the elected governments. We are gathered here to celebrate the fine journalism of Mathrubhumi. It is important to reflect on the impediments that are placed in the path of free and fair journalism by those who talk about, or those who talk a lot about, the traditions of democracy, but do very little to preserve those traditions of democracy, but only known for emergency. And we talk about the press freedom. We must and should take note of how offices and studios of news organizations are attacked and ransacked, as it happened recently, simply because they don't toe the government line. We should be concerned how journalists are attacked, as it happened recently, for defying their versions of the news to a particular ideology. Emergency reminds us what the media person have gone through. And James here rightly mentioned that Honorable Chief Minister himself was in the jail. At that time, Virendra ji was also in the jail. Advani ji, Jetli ji and others were in the jail during the emergency period. The voices were curbed during that time. So as I was talking about the media persons, I always thought news was news. And such outrageous assaults weaken democracy and its institutions. And that is shameful. It is outrageous and unacceptable as the ceaseless attacks on those who hold a different political view and have strong beliefs for their motherland. This should stop. The brutal attempt to silence them has failed. I pay my humble tribute to those men and women who stood up to their dharma and whose only fault was they were associated with one particular ideology. The attacks on them weakens democracy, but their courage, forbearance and steadfastness strengthens democracy. Governments have responsibilities, so does media has responsibilities. Let the journalists play their role, report what is right to the general public. I call upon journalists to do their job sincerely, without either fear or favor.